And many people have been overcome by the dunya and overcome by their whims and their souls. So the author, she is mentioning this, to draw the attention to the sister and the reader. She says, وَكَأَنَّنَا خُلِقْنَا لِلدُّنْيَا وَكَأَنَّنَا خُلِقْنَا لِلدُّنْيَا. After establishing the fact that we have been created to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, and that's a test, and this life is a test, then we will be held accountable for that worship, and there are commandments and prohibitions that we have to abide by. And if there is a test, then there must be a recompense. If there is a test, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, to test you, أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, who does the best deed, after that test and trial, there must be a recompense. There must be a recompense. So those who do good deeds can be recompensed with good, and those who do bad deeds, they will be recompensed for that which they used to do. So she mentions that this is the reality, that we are created to worship, and that we will be held accountable, and it's a trial and a test, and that everyone will meet their deeds whenever they meet their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will see their actions and be held accountable. She says, وَكَأَنَّنَا خُلِقْنَا لِلدُّنْيَا وَلِلْأَكْلِ وَالشُّرْبِ وَلِلْلَهْوِ. And she says, but it's as if, in the minds of many of the people, it's as if we have been created for this life, and for eating and for drinking and for joking and amusement. فَنَحْنُ لَمْ نَقُمْ بِمَا يُرِيدُهُ اللَّهُ مِنَّا. So we have not established properly that what Allah wants from us. بَلْ نُهَرْوِلُ فِي صَدِّهِ. Rather, we are hastening to turn away from that and to stop that. فَلَا تُلْهِنَا الدُّنْيَا فَإِنَّ الْعُمُرَ قَصِيرٌ جِدًّا. So she said that the dunya should not preoccupy us, because this life, it is very short. Because this life, it is very short. وَلَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ مَنْ قَالَ. And she said that verily the one who mentioned has mentioned a good statement. The poet, الْعُمْرُ أَقْصَرُ مُدَّةً مِنْ أَنْ يُضَيِّعَ فِي الْحِسَابِ فَاغْتَنِمُوا سَاعَاتِهِ فَمُرُورُهَا مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. She mentioned the statement of the poet, the meaning of that which is that the life is the shortest period. The term of the life is very short, the meaning of this poetry. That a person's lifespan, it is very short. It is too short that it could be wasted in the reckoning. People will be held accountable for their deeds, and for them to waste that opportunity. This life is very short, and a person is getting closer to that day that he will or she will be held accountable. This life is the life of action, and the next life is the life of hisab, and al-jaza is the life of recompense, and recompense begins in the next life. In the next life there is no action. In this life there is action, and there is no recompense for those deeds. But in the hereafter there is recompense, and there is no more time for action. That begins whenever a person's soul leaves their body, and that begins whenever they are placed in the grave. That begins whenever they are placed in the grave. So life is too short to waste it away, and then be held accountable in the end for this. So take advantage of the hours, and don't take advantage of one's life, because verily it passes quickly like the passing of the clouds. And life is short. Now she says, but الدنيا نفسها قصيرة جدا. She said, rather this life, not a person's life, but the whole dunya in reality is very short. Yes, the life of an individual is very short, but even the dunya is even more short. So then a person has to take themselves into account. And the sister, she must take herself seriously, and her deen seriously, and her responsibility seriously. Just as a reminder, I mentioned today in this masjid, there was a sister, we prayed janazah on her. May Allah pardon her and have mercy on her. And the brothers took her to the graveyard and buried her today, a sister. Yesterday she was with you, and today she's not. This is the reality. Brothers die and sisters die. Children die and grandparents die, and mothers and sisters and brothers, they will pass away. Life is short. Don't waste it away in disobedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. And don't waste it away without striving to do and fulfill the purpose while one is created. Rather, even though this life or one's life is short, even she mentions the dunya itself is short. And she mentions here, قال تعالى اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. She mentioned the verse which is in Surah Al-Hadid, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, the meaning of which is, and know that the life of this world is only play and amusement, pomp and mutual boasting amongst yourselves, and rivalry in respect of wealth and children. It is as the likes of vegetation after rain, thereof the growth is pleasing to the tillers and the farmers. Afterwards it dries up and you see it turning yellow, then it becomes straw. But in the hereafter there is a severe torment for the disbelievers and evildoers, and there is forgiveness from Allah and His good pleasure for those believers and good doers. And the life of this world is only a deceiving enjoyment. Allah Azza wa Jal, He is commanding us to know, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو, that you must know that this life is nothing, the life of this world is nothing but la'ib, is playing and amusement. La'ibun, that the people of the dunya, what do they do in this life? They are playing. In their bodies they play. Yal'abun, and enjoying themselves, playing. Likewise, walahu, amusement. This is from the amusement of the heart. So the people of the dunya, they have been heedless and they neglected the purpose why they are created, and they have forgot the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, and they play and they joke. And their bodies are for playing and jest, and they're enjoying themselves coming and going, and all they seek is pleasure. And likewise their hearts are heedless, and their hearts are full of amusement and seeking pleasure and the likes like this from the dunya. That this is the reality of this life, and zina and tafakhur, and the adornment and beautification, pomp and glitter, and likewise boasting amongst yourself and gathering wealth and children. That this is the case and for those people who have been overcome by the dunya. As for those who are not tried or deceived by this life, then they spend their bodies and their hearts in the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, seeking His pleasure by performing the deeds of righteousness. As the people of the dunya here, Allah mentioned about them, لَعِبٌ وَلَهٌ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ, that they are hastening, هُمْ فِي مُنَافَسَةٍ في أمور الدنيا وتحصيلها, that they are competing for the affairs of the dunya and obtaining the life of this world. This is for those people of the dunya, ahlul dunya. As for ahlul akhirah, the people of the hereafter, then they likewise too, hum fi munafasa, they are also likewise in a competition and they are competing, but they are competing for something more great and virtuous, more lofty and high than the affairs of this dunya. Rather, they are competing for the pleasure of Allah, and they are competing for His mercy in the high ranks in the hereafter. So a believer, he would not be deceived by this life. As Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned that it's the example of rain, that the rain, it comes, and the people, the farmers, they toil the soil and they get it ready, and whenever the rain comes, it produces crops and herbs and produces beautiful plants and vegetables and fruits and the likes like this. And then shortly after that, those crops, they will die and they will go away. So just like that in this life, a believer or an individual, he will grow and he will become strong and be healthy in general, and he will reach his peak, and then after that he will turn and he will die and he will go away. And that is the example of this life. This life, a person who will see all the good in this life and gain and have wealth and money and prosperity, get a family and the likes like this, and thinking at that time that they have the best of this life, and then death will come to them. Death will come to them, and that's what they have been promised. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, every soul will taste death. So this is the example of this life. So a believer would not be deceived. This is the purpose of this verse here, to understand this example, to not be deceived, that this life, even though it looks beautiful and the adornment, it looks very pleasurable and the likes, it will go away. No matter how great or good it seems or satisfying, that satisfaction will go away, that goodness will go away, and an individual will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that time there is وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٌ. that in the hereafter there is one of two things, and that would be a severe punishment or forgiveness from Allah and His pleasure. So this is the case, Allah reminds the believers, and this life is nothing except a deceiving enjoyment.